Following video is brought to you by BSEN, Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always, leave a comment, and thank you for enjoying the video.
All right, welcome to the Kings of Causeway podcast, part of the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Pat Burke, joined as always by Ryan Coffey. We are here to talk live after Game 3, Round 1 against Toronto. Coffey, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad. Can't ask for anything more than that type of a win.
Better than I felt on Monday. Let's put it that way. Not great, but better than I felt on Monday.
Yeah, it's probably not as good as I felt after Game 1, but definitely way better than Monday. A lot of things I like tonight, to be fair. Even though the score might say different, I feel like we dominated them in a lot of aspects. Couple sloppy plays, but I'm happy with our performance tonight for sure.
I can't wait to get into this, and we are going to jump right in because just by what you said right there, this might be the first time in a really long time we've watched two different games. I did not think that this was a good performance from the boys at all. I thought we were lucky to be hanging around. Coming off of a pretty deflating Game 2 loss, if I'm going to be honest. This was a Game 2 I thought we were going to win. And then obviously going on the road, tied 1-1. The old adage is the playoff series never starts until a team loses at home. Well, we went and lost at home. So the playoffs have now officially started. Here we are in Toronto. They're doing their thing where they're all excited for the first, 2.5 minutes until they don't score 11 goals in the first 2.5 minutes. And then the crowd is non-existent for a while. But in that first period, especially, I really thought that we were not the better team in the first period. Did you see otherwise?
I thought we were for the first 5-10 minutes. To be fair, I think probably this middle half of that, the middle 10 minutes of that period, not so much. We let them claw back into it, but I think the reason I saw it maybe a little differently than you is it just felt like every chance we had to maybe get momentum 5-on-5 or anything like that, we had a ridiculous penalty called against us. We killed 5 penalties tonight. And so I think if you factor that in across 3 periods, that's, almost to a period. Not to mention we weren't getting the calls the other way, it felt like. So I think when you factor that in, I do think we dominated them in a lot of areas. One I'm going to call out, it makes a lot of sense. 0 for 5 on the power play for Toronto. So absolutely dominated on the penalty kill. And that takes a lot out of the guys, right? And you can't just kind of roll the lines 5-on-5 when that happens.
I mean,
all your PKs are fatigued.
That's 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes. Exactly. We were shorthanded. Now I just want to clarify for the listeners out there. You're able to get the Nesson feed in the first round, right? So it is Jack and Brett. So, okay, so I am not able to. So I am dealing with a different set of commentators who may or may not be coloring a little bit of what I'm seeing. For example, these guys clearly want I think they just want 7 games no matter what. I'm not saying that they're biased one way or the other, but they clearly want it to be back and forth. And I think they know Boston is a better team. So they really try and talk the Leafs up, even though it's probably not, it's not doing anything. The guys that they're talking to can't impact the game whatsoever. So it doesn't matter, but they're just definitely trying to make it feel maybe like Toronto is a lot better or more in it than they might be from a different perspective. So that is where I'm slightly colored on this. You know, we get the first power play of the game and we have a couple good shots. We have I think 5 shots.
Yeah.
And just nothing's really going. We compound that with immediately they get a really soft call. I'm sorry, in the playoffs, that's a baby back bitch cross check to call. It really is. It would set the tone for our group chat or for our text thread for the next 3 hours. The inconsistencies and the what in the actual fuck is going on-ness of everything started with that cross check. The delay of game is a delay of game is a delay of game. Like there's no subjectivity to that. That's no ref's opinion.
Yeah.
It went on that is a penalty that has to be called. It just seemed like they immediately went and tried to call something soft. And to be honest, Toronto's power play stuck it to us there at the beginning. They put us under a lot of pressure. DeBrusk made a hell of a comeback save. The only reason we weren't down 1-0 after 1, in my opinion, was of DeBrusk's work 200 feet from where he normally works.
Yeah, no, 100%. And definitely, I mean, to go back to the penalty, super soft call on Bertuzzi. I feel like to be fair, I think that's 3 or 4 I've seen throughout the series where Toronto's just going down in front of the net. Meanwhile, they're allowed to just absolutely destroy us in front of their goalie. Tyler Bertuzzi, I thank God we didn't sign him for the price he was asking for this offseason because he's not a tough guy in my eyes. I thought he was. Turns out he's not. He was getting pushed around out there, and that's how that penalty happened. He just collapsed over a week. I think who was it? Mason Lohrei?
Mason Lohrei,
not a tough guy. So not a guy that's putting a ton of strength on
and not a guy with a playoff reputation of getting penalty. This is his first playoff game. Like he's and maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know, but that seems soft. And then I immediately started looking at everything else that was happening through the lens of, okay, we're gonna call it soft. I don't agree with that. I know, as we'll get into, you don't agree with that in the playoffs either, but it's one of those, if you're going to call it soft one way, it has to get called soft all of the other ways. Almost right after that, Johnny Beecher gets his stick held, almost taken down behind Toronto's net. No call. And it's one of those, I immediately texted you, he's like, what the hell's going on? You were like, I wouldn't have called that either. I was like, I agree. But when you call it soft one way, it has to go the other way. There isn't this, we'll let some other things go, but then call it the other way for the other team. That's not consistency in my eyes. And these refs have displayed no consistency 3 straight games. Even when it works in our favor, I'm still pissed off that we can't get a consistent game out of any referee set.
Yeah, and I think we're both willing to admit when we get a soft call, which we admit.
Absolutely, which we will.
Wasn't,
and we'll talk about in a little bit how the refs just sucking benefit the Bruins a little bit. But I'm still pissed that's
you got to
when Angel Hernandez blows a call 4 feet off home plate for the Red Sox. I'm still equally pissed and saying, like, what the hell is this dude doing back there? Like, that's 100%. Blowing the game. I like the strike call or whatever it might be, but at the same time, get him the hell out of there. Like, this is garbage. This is the playoffs, man.
100%, and it blows my mind that we have 3, and this was right after those first 2 penalties you acknowledge. McAvoy gets a high stick straight to the face. Apparently 4 refs on the ice don't see it.
Nobody saw him lose a tooth?
Goes back to the conversation we said the other night of, like, that's just one you should blatantly be able to review. Call a penalty. I mean, it's so blatant. I mean, there were a lot. I've said this before. I'd rather see less penalties called in the playoffs, but when you start giving one team the favor, you have to call it both ways.
Then it's got to go both ways.
Absolutely.
the one thing I'll say, Jeremy Swayman came out in that first period looking really, really sharp. He was lights out in the first. Especially that first penalty kill, he was under siege. Made a lot of really, really good saves, and looked like the Vezina contender that we know he can be. So absolutely thought that Swayman had a great first period. The other thing I noticed in the first, and we talked about a little before the pod, was it sure as heck seems like the theme of tossing Boston face-off guys out of the dot on the first false start or whatever you want to call it, has continued. We used to notice it a lot with Bergeron when during the regular season he was like a 70% face-off winner and then would get tossed from the dot every other face-off in the playoffs. It was like, what the hell's going on? I'm just seeing the same thing. And to be honest, it doesn't matter whether or not the Bruins are at home and can drop the stick last. It doesn't matter if they're on the road today and have to drop first. They're getting tossed like first go. And the guys from Toronto were allowed to stay in there. Like I think one Toronto guy got tossed and like 7 Bruins got tossed today. And that's that creates problems. Like that screws everything up when it's like that. Your face-off guys are there for a reason. And when the refs suddenly decide, oh, I don't like you in here anymore, that's an issue.
Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to it in the first game, but since you called it out in the second, I've definitely noticed. It's a big discrepancy. I think I wish that's something
I'd love the stats. I'd love the stats.
I would love to see
AWS, get on that.
It felt like it was like 8-1 or 10-2 or so. It felt very lopsided in that regard from the faceoff. So just another thing the refs are just absolutely not blowing. Another one, I mean, not a penalty, but like, what was that hit on Swayman in the middle of the intermission? Like, what is that?
It's a commercial break, and I don't. So that was in the second period. So all right, moving to the second period. The first thing I wrote down was refs still suck. Was my very first line, and I was trying to write this chronologically as I was going through and things were happening. I was writing it down, trying to make sure that I could understand, what I was thinking and whatnot as it was going. And my first thing is refs suck in all caps. The hit on Swayman, it happened at a commercial break, or entering a commercial break. And when we came back from the commercial break, the commentators I was listening to, that was terrible. Commentators I was listening to framed it as, 2 guys that just weren't looking at where they were going, and it happened. Well,
that's not what Nesson said. I can tell you that.
That's also not what the head movement of the individual said. And the other thing that I'm just going to point out, and maybe this is me being biased and subjective as a goaltender, we get special privileges. I don't care what sport it is, whether it's hockey, soccer, like whatever. Goalies get special privileges. They always have. They always will. It's the facts of the matter. Like when you choose to take that position as your profession, there are some written or unwritten rules that just, it is what it is. It's the same reason you don't snow shower the goalie. You can snow shower 100%. Anybody else at any other time. You don't snow shower the goalie, you're going to get hit in the face. And the refs 100%. Have to let that go. You knock the goalie over. It's not like it was like there was a long time of them coming together. There was no business what's his nuts had being in our zone as Swayman's skating out, sticks it like he gets out there. That was ridiculous. That was tied up with the coil trip as he comes off the board, which was preceded by the other goaltender getting a favorable call, where apparently Samsonov can just chuck his mask off whenever he wants to get a call, and we're just going to be like, oh, shit, give him a call.
Second game in a row that has happened. So
he just chucks his mask. He yeets his mask off. Swayman's mask breaks in the third, And he keeps it on until there's a natural whistle and is like, hey, my shit's fucked.
Yeah.
But Samsonov is like, oh my God, I'm in panic mode. Let me headbang. Like he looks like he's at a Headhunters concert, like just banging away in Eastern Europe, lobbing his
yeah. It seems like he was told if the puck ever hits his mask to just flail it off because we're in the offensive zone. To me, that's something, another maybe review, but like I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. If it happens again, though, something like a delay of game needs to happen there because that's just, I mean, you're taking away that was going to be a prime scoring chance for us when he did it.
It was.
So,
we still had possession in the zone. It didn't. The replay that we got on my feed was from behind the net, like from the goal cam. And at no point does it ever look like that mask goes side to side.
It looks like it barely skimmed
the
the
goal
top,
hand.
like right here. It looks like it barely grazed it.
Right, which again might be
could have hit a buckle back there, but
which might be disconcerting for a goaltender. But I'm sorry, as a goaltender, that's one of those you can't rip your mask off unless like it's like this and like noticeable. Like you can't just decide whenever you want. Like
the proof's in the pudding on that one. Like if you got hit back here, technically that could unclip one of the straps. But the struggle that you saw from him to whip that off his head just said it all. It was clearly secure on his head. It was clearly secure. The fact that he had to like rattle 13 times to get out of that thing just says that it was secure and it wasn't loose in the first place. So that's a whole nother story. But yeah,
I don't know whether or not I'll do some diligence before our next pod, and decide and figure out whether or not there is any room in the rules for calling a delay of game if the goaltender were to do something like that. I don't know if it's ever been an issue before where that's ever needed to be written down, which might make things a little sticky. But one thing that's not sticky, and I've been trying to find out, I have been all over Twitter, Instagram, Reddit. I've been everywhere. So if anybody has the answer to this, please help me understand. Shortly after that whole scenario happens, we've got about 6 minutes of uninterrupted play. The Bruins go into the offensive zone down the left-hand side. The puck hits the back of the boards. Guys go in on the forecheck. It goes around, and a whistle is called. A whistle is called almost in an icing world, which would have been, I thought, would have been late for icing because players were trying to play the puck, and then we get the whistle. But then we go to a commercial break. So it's clearly not icing because you can't have a full commercial in between. You know, if icing's a call, if there's not a timeout, it goes right back down to the other end. So it wasn't that. We get 3.5 minutes of commercials, then a Bruins offensive zone face-off, which after a breakdown on there ends up directly leading to a Toronto goal. I don't know what the whistle was for. There was no puck jam. There was no penalty called. There was no anything. What the hell was that whistle for?
I'm still, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was on like a JVR tipped in, and then he ended up beating the guy to the puck anyway. So it wasn't
which is why I don't think it was icing, because they didn't call it. Like the puck went in on the left-hand side, went around the boards, and it wasn't until we were at the crux of the other boards, like 4 skaters came together, and then a random whistle went.
You're right. It was one of those ones where I was like, wait a second, that didn't make sense. And then when
what did we just call for?
When you texted me, I was like, maybe I missed something, and I kind of let it go. They never showed an actual replay. And then when you texted me, I'm like, okay, if we both saw it, then something was definitely up. And yeah, to your point, if the faceoff was down our end, then sure, clear as day. But on offense,
then it's icing. Then it's icing, and the ref was trying to fumbled his whistle or whatever, and that's fine. Like, okay, I would have disagreed with the icing call, but that makes sense. But to blow the whistle dead when there's a scrum, when we saw multiple times during that game, they are just happy to let a 40-second scrum go on in the corner where Tavares and Pat Maroon are pinching that puck and no movement. Like they let that go for a good 40 seconds in both the first and the third period. I want to understand what that whistle was, because if it was icing, there shouldn't have been a 3-minute commercial break, and the faceoff should have been back in our zone, and it should have been blown earlier. If it was anything else that would have stopped it in the offensive zone, there should have been a penalty called at some point. Like if it was a Bruins getting a like, what was it? Because while yes, I understand there was a faceoff that we then shot into. I think it got shot into Beecher's butt and then went down the other way. I understand all of that, but it was just a weird, like, why did that whistle happen? If it was just a shit, the ref fucked up, blew the whistle when he wasn't supposed to. Honestly, I understand that. These refs are human, and I get that, but you need to make that call of, like, our bad. I blew the whistle when I didn't mean to. Like, sorry, that's what it is now. TV timeout, go. That's on me. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong. I've only scattered or scanned the internet for this. That hasn't been what's come out. I just want to know what the hell that whistle was for.
I think at this point it had to have been like a ref messing up or blowing a whistle, but you'd think the weird part is if you didn't see it on ESPN, I didn't see it on this, and neither feed then like said what it was.
Said what it was.
Like neither of them.
The refs didn't announce to the stadium like, oh, our bad, like in indirect, like whatever. Like I get it. In soccer, refs get in the way of the ball all the time. Refs accidentally, but like, oh, our bad. Starting over, my bad, get out of the way. It's like, but you got to tell, like, what the hell was that whistle for?
Yeah, and we went from having a sustained pressure after 6 minutes of
to giving up a goal 18 seconds later.
Yeah, granted, we had a bad play off the faceoff, but it would have been should have never happened. So I
it's one of those. We should never have been like. I'm not excusing the poor play that led to the goal. I'm not saying that because that whistle happened, we gave up a goal. It's not that. But it's also not that, if that makes sense. Like it's not an excuse or blame, but it's also like just what was that for? I will say, on our topic of ref inconsistencies, there were a couple in the second period, particularly one where it looks like Charlie McAvoy tackles Austin Matthews that doesn't get called. And I immediately wrote down Austin Matthews not getting a call there does not make up for us not getting a call somewhere else. If the Leafs got 5 power plays and we get away with 4 penalties, it does not even it out. A power play is very different than a non-call. And so while I agree, that should have been based on the standard of what I thought we were going on the game, that should have been called and the Bruins get away with one there. It's also not the same as like, we gave a power play on that one and now you get a makeup call there. It's like that. Those are two completely separate things. And in hockey, I do think it's important to know the difference between something got let slide and something was called and a penalty was awarded. 100%. Same thing with the Marchand on Bertuzzi, where the trip that leads to the goal. By the standard of the game previous to that point, should have been called. Wasn't called.
Yeah.
Worked in our favor, but the inconsistency is infuriating as hell because if something like that happens next game and gets called, it's going to be like, well, you just let it, like, what are our standards here?
That specific one to me was just a perfect, like, last game when Coyle ended up getting the matching penalty. Yep. So Bertuzzi had tripped Marchand first, then Marchand tripped him back. Perfect scenario to throw them both in the box. Like,
agreed.
But I would have been happy with that because they both committed a penalty. Like, clear as day, they both tripped each other. They should both be in the box. I don't understand how the refs don't see it like that. Like, or I guess don't call it either, but it's just like the consistency is all over the place.
Yeah, and because the other things that they've called kind of have indicated if they see it, they're calling it.
Yeah.
They're clearly choosing not to see the high stick on McAvoy somehow, and they didn't see that whole scrum. To be perfectly honest, that's the kind of scrum that I would like. The Bertuzzi nabs Marchand. Marchand comes back at Bertuzzi. They jostle off to the side. A goal happens to happen, which is the only reason we're still talking about it is because the goal happened. I'd perfectly be fine with just that never getting called. At the same time, I don't think the low ride penalty should have been called. I don't think the Matthews penalty should have been called. I don't think at the end of the game, when we're trying to kill it off and we're about to get to the third period, at the end of the game, I don't think Tavares' penalty should have been called. Like in the playoffs,
one was pretty bad in my eyes.
But if nothing else had been called all game except the delay of game, there were no
That's fair.
Like, just in my opinion, the threshold for a penalty in playoff hockey needs to be so much higher. You've got to understand as a referee, the emotions are bigger. Like, let the boys sort it out 5-on-5. Like, just let them sort it out unless something is the delay of game, which you can't argue it. There's no, I didn't mean to. It's like, well, the physics said the puck went over the glass. There's nothing we can do about that.
100%.
Bar something really bad. Just let it go. And we've been saying this all series. Like, I don't feel like we're being homers in this because we'll admit, like, the Bruins have benefited on a couple of these, what I would consider bullshit penalty calls. They've benefited. Agreed. I don't like it because I don't like the precedent that it sets later on. But anyway, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Sorry, I think it just highlights, and this is why I think maybe we saw it differently of why we dominated, is because they went 0 for 5. We went 2 for 3. I feel like if that's reversed, like if they go 2 for 5 and we go 1 for 2 or 0 for 2, the refs cost us the game at that point. That's the difference here. Like, I think that's why I'm saying we dominated this game. If that just goes slightly different, we're sitting here screaming at the refs again, going, we're down 2-1 because of the refs. So that's like that. That's
I just want the record to show that this is after game 3, and I am still bitching and complaining about the refs on a game we won. Like, I will at least be consistent on that. I don't think the refs had a good game, and we benefited more than we were hurt results-wise.
Agreed.
I don't think the power play numbers work out that way. But I mean, we won the game, and we won the game benefiting from a couple of referee scenarios. And I will still stand here and say the refs did an absolutely terrible job. This was awful.
Awful.
This was awful. And I don't think it was awful in like they clearly tried to favor us or clearly tried to favor them kind of way. They were just bad.
Yeah,
across the board, they were bad. Anyway, moving into the third period, starting on that 4-on-4 that quickly turned into a power play for the Bruins because of some smart late period management from the penalty kill team when they noticed that. And Jake DeBrusk, I mean, Jakey D. Playing for his contracts.
It's funny because after he netted that, I was starting to think back, and I'm like, is he one of those guys that just doesn't perform during the regular season and then turns it on for the playoffs? And I'm like, it would be really nice to see some stats. Should I look it up? And right on cue, this is why I love the home feed. Nesson comes up. Power play games, I think it was something like 71.
79
and 41 points.
He in the regular season he was on in 79 games. He had a power play opportunity and scored 2 goals. In 3 games against Toronto, he's scored 3 goals on the power play. I'm sure Nesson might have given a different feed. This was the feed that our guys gave, was that in 79 regular season games, he had a power play opportunity and scored 2 goals. In 3 games, he's scored 3 goals in the playoffs.
So we got the reverse of it. We got to see total points. So I think he has 41 or 42 points in the playoffs over like a 71 game stretch, I want to say, or something like that, which breaks down to more than a point every other game.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you think about it, he wasn't on the power play until last year a little bit, maybe this year.
A little bit. Yeah.
And so if you really look at those numbers, that means he's scoring, getting on the scoreboard almost every game without being on the power play majority of his career. Yeah. It's pretty good numbers. I Look, he'll probably never live up to what we expected out of him, to be fair. But the bar was set high, and I'll take him being great in the playoffs and not, being okay in the regular season any day.
Yeah, and I will accept the jinx. I got the sweater that I'm wearing right now. I got in 2019 walking down, Fifth or Sixth Ave in New York City. I walked right into the NHL. So right before the playoffs started, made them make me one because they did not have a Jake DeBrusk in 2019 off the rack. And I was like, this kid, I fucking like what I'm seeing from Jake DeBrusk. I've been in his camp. I've been in his camp from the beginning. You've given me a lot of shit for it. I got off his bandwagon a little bit this year. I asked both you and the Chowd, game one, who am I riding with, Pasta or DeBrusk, because Bergeron's on the wall. And you both went, got to ride DeBrusk. I've trusted, and boy, the kid's delivered, man. I think to your point, he's never going to be what we thought he could be 4 years ago. Definitely. Purely because I don't think he has the consistency. He's got the talent. We know he's got the raw talent. We see it. He's got the raw talent. He just doesn't have the consistency. And he seems to have to play Canadian teams. So I don't know if
that's fair.
I don't know if we can figure out a way to rework his contract to where like it's on 50% of the season where he only comes in during the playoffs and or Canadian games. And then he does great. I don't know how that'll work. I'll let his agents do it, but
he's been dominating in every aspect too.
And he's smiling on the bench, which is not something we always see.
It always goes with his legs when his legs are moving, he can compete with anyone. So that's the first step. And he's flying up there. He's flying, which puts him in good areas to either get to the puck first or lay big hits or lay hits that are going to cause turnovers. He's been forcing a lot of turnovers, which I've loved out of him. On top of the points. I mean, points are one thing, but for me, it's always been work ethic for DeBrusk. And so far, he's 3 for 3 on every game.
Agreed. Shortly after that goal, obviously Mason Lowride takes his second penalty. This one was a little more egregious in the scope of things. I do think that he got the hook in there a little bit. Yeah. I also think Matthews goes down hella easy. Like it's one of those if we had established some like, hey, this is the playoffs, y'all are just gonna have to tough it out. I wouldn't think that was going to be called. The frustrating thing is if you watch some of these other series, like the Dallas Vegas game that's going on right now, they're not calling that. They are letting 100%. These boys who are not traditional rivals. Like Toronto and Boston are rivals now not in the same way Boston and Montreal are, but in the way that in the last 10 years, it's been Boston, Toronto more than it's been Boston and Montreal. Vegas and Dallas know nothing about each other. They are letting this series play out like a fucking rock fight. And that's what the playoff, to me, that's what the playoffs are. I remember going back to those Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche series in like 1998, 1999, when I was first getting into hockey and watching Mike Modano and Peter Forsberg and Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh just absolutely wail on each other. Nothing's called. It's just like, hey, we're going to let the boys play. That is, 100%. To me, that is playoff hockey. And to see one series ref one way and another series ref just completely differently is where my frustrations come from. So Lowry takes his second penalty, which is tough. It's his first ever playoff game. And now he's in the box twice looking at we just went ahead. And now you've put us on the penalty kill, like what that mentally might do for a rookie, what that mentally might do to the coach. We don't know what Monty's feelings are going to be long-term about Montgomery about Lowride taking a second penalty there, but it can't be good. And I liked the way both he and Parker Wotherspoon played. Like I liked the way they both played. I don't think this should be an indictment on Mason Lowride.
I don't either, and I think we talked about Montgomery. I think I was actually pretty shocked. I think I told you that I would be shocked if they put Wotherspoon and Laura in at the same time. They surprisingly did. Pulled our, favorite sin bin player, Matt Grzelcyk, out of the lineup.
I think it worked. I think
They
it
had the balls.
works.
They had the balls to do it. And to be fair, Wotherspoon, little sketchy on the first goal, but I truly can say I don't think putting them in the lineup hurt us. Like
No,
I don't.
agreed.
There was not a drop off from having a Grizz. Like, I mean, there sure there was a drop off from not having Peak in the lineup, but he's injured.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Which
So I think
just goes to show, like, when Peak is ready, he replaces one of those two. And I think it would probably, if he's ready for Game 4, I think he probably replaces Lowry. To be honest,
agreed.
just honestly, because of the penalties, and it might be nothing deeper than that. I think the two of them, they acquitted themselves decently for first time playoff performers. Like, and there was at one point, I don't know if your feed got this, but one point in the second, the Frederick line was left out with Wotherspoon on defense against Austin Matthews' line. And they made a note of just like, wow, this is real courageous from Jim Montgomery leaving these guys out there. And they immediately smothered an entry and sent it up the other way for a chance. It's like, these guys aren't slouches. And I don't know. I hope that Lowry's two penalties don't cost him. My next note in the third period was Jeremy Swayman's a fucking beast, man.
Yeah, he the stats aren't going to say it, but I mean, if you really look at it, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that second goal went off of Lindholm's skate.
It did.
It was not Bertuzzi tipping that.
It went Bertuzzi's skate. Projected to go like 10 feet wide, which is something that the ESPN crew reported. It was like, wow, bertuzzi had hit his skate. It was going to go about 10 feet wide. And then it hit Lindholm's skate and beat Swayman. Like, that thing was going up the boards, not even down the boards. That was going up the boards before it hit Lindholm and went in. Like,
yeah, so he let up one goal out of 30 something shots realistically.
And good shots. And good shots, a lot of them.
Saves. Yeah. I mean, couple ones where he was I give him props for doing that yoga because he was in the full split a lot tonight and he was making ridiculous stops.
There was one overhead cam footage during one of the penalty kills where Bertuzzi whiffs almost and it just like flutters past. And I think for me, my heart went into my throat because I was like, that's going to be the one that just flips and rotates in. It flipped and rotated wide, but he stayed in that perfect straight line split. The puck came back off the boards and hit the toe of his skate and kicked to a Bruin.
He also didn't even, it actually didn't go, I don't know if you saw it. So it was technically going wide, but the player on the Leafs that was next to goal was going to have an open net chance. He actually caught it with like a slight piece of his stick while in the butterfly to put it to the boards in the first place. Yeah, he has the Leafs numbers. You weren't kidding. I think we keep the rotation going now that we're up.
I agree. That was going to be my point. It's like I say all of that to say,
yeah,
I think you bring in Ullmark again.
100%, you do.
And if now, and I'll caveat with this, and I'm calling this after Game 3. Let's say, like, I think Ullmark should start next. I think these boys, the rotation is crazy. To your point, I think the Leafs were struggling to figure out, wait a minute, how do we score on this guy again versus how do we score on the other guy? Which one is whoa. I think that was a huge part of some of it. So keep the rotation going. If they beat Ullmark again and now it's 2-2. We go back to the TD Garden
twice,
and Swayman wins. Twice. Swayman wins at TD. Then it's Swayman the rest of the series.
Agreed.
I think. But for now, I think you keep the rotation. You trust the rotation because it's not like Ullmark cost us Game 2. We talked ad nauseum after Game 2 about what cost us Game 2, and it was not the goaltender. Ullmark played out of his mind and ended up on the shit end of things. I don't think it's going to hurt Swayman's confidence or his momentum to go back to the bench. I only think it benefits Ullmark and later in other series. I think you've got to think forward to other
100%.
series almost on the assumption of, hey, we're going to be able to beat the Leafs. We're going to figure out a way to do that. What we want against the Canes or the Rangers or the Panthers or the Light or whoever it is we play next is to be able to bounce that 1-2 off of. So let's not abandon the rotation just because your number one guy won twice and the number two guy lost. Don't do that. Put Ullmark back in there. If he loses, okay, then have one guy finish out the series and then go back to the rotation and try again. This might be one of those just like, holy shit, Jeremy Swayman just has the Leafs number. He might.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, he can beat them in 5, 6, and 7. He doesn't need to beat them 4.
Agreed, 100%. And I think it goes back to Jim Montgomery too. Like, you're not, you're trying to balance everything, but like you're also playing chess with like, hey, we're trying to win 16 games.
Right.
So we're not. And he bringing in Wotherspoon, Lohrei, I think putting in JVR tonight had a really good impact. So I think he made all the right moves before the game. I think the difference this time was he made the right moves in the game too. He also switched up the line. He switched up the lines very early. I think he sent the message that it's like, doesn't matter who you're out there with, go play the way we're supposed to play. So
he sent Pasta out there on the 4th line at one point, and it was just like one of those, why not? We've got talent up and down this roster. If that's what it takes to get Pasternak free, get Pasternak free, even if it's just for a series to get him feeling like, oh, that's right, the ice is open, here I go. Whatever it might be, I think you're exactly right. He made great in-game adjustments, and now you hope he makes the right post-game adjustments.
And I also think it was a very clear message. Swayman might have had the benefit of this. I thought Swayman had awesome saves on Austin Matthews tonight, so I can't take that away from him. But I think as a team, it was definitely a team effort that we're not letting Austin Matthews get on the score sheet tonight. So I think that was an effort from everyone. But Swayman also had his number on a couple good shots. One was
he definitely. He definitely was shut down a little more than he was in game 2, which to your point kind of goes to the, hey, we're going to put some extra focus on this. But there were a couple of times where he did get free and did get open, and Swayman said, you can go sit on the bench, my guy. You're not getting in here today. My next note, Cap stepped up. The captain stepped up.
He did.
I was texting you. I was writing down, for most of the game, I thought Charlie Coyle was in witness protection. Zacha could do nothing but get crushed by Austin Reeves. And I thought Brad Marchand was gun shy in the first 2 periods. And then, all of a sudden they score, it's 2-2 and Cap stepped up. Brad Marchand takes a pass from an incredible forecheck from Trent Frederick, who's going to go unheralded outside of Boston for this. Like, I'm sure the Nesson guys are going to call it out. I know the ESPN guys didn't do a great job. But Trent Frederick goes in there and digs that puck out. And Marchand just says, wait a minute, I've scored from this exact spot against Roberto Luongo in 2011, and I'm just going to rip this near double bar, and bing, bang, there it is. And that was vintage Brad Marchand in a way that, like, I don't want to say where has this been, because I just want it to continue. Like, please let this just be the.
This makes me so happy to talk about, because
let's give him his flowers.
As much as you have, we're ahead of the curve on DeBrusk. I'm sure you remember back at UCF 2011, I was repping Brad Marchand when he was working his way up the lineup. You were. I love everything about his game.
2011, you had him.
I did not know he was going to turn into what he did, to be fair. I just love the way he played the game.
No, you love the way he played. You love the way he played. You always have loved the way this kid played.
The timing of this, like, couldn't have scripted better myself. Like, it literally felt like he caught the puck and he was like, wait, I can still rip the puck past a goalie. I mean, like we were talking about it literally in the middle of the game. Dude, is Marchand going to shoot ever in the entire series?
I texted you. I was like, he's gun shy.
And
He's gun
he
shy.
just pulled an absolute snipe out of his back pocket. And I think the timing of that for him to be like, oh shit, I can still shoot. Then for him to go down there, kind of bury Bertuzzi and get the final one, I loved every second of this game from him.
So backing up just a tad to that snipe goal. One thing I noticed in his celebration, he did his little like jump step,
which I hate, but whatever, we'll let it slide.
I know, but I looked at that. And see, normally I hate it, but this time I loved it because to me, I'm crossing my fingers that was him mentally checking back into the hotel room of like, wait a minute, I've got that in my locker. I've still got that. Shit, 100%. I am fucking nasty. I'm nasty when I want to be. And when I'm in certain spots, in certain situations, I am nasty. And I think that mentality that he checked into with that jump celebration directly contributed him trucking Leafs defenders with the empty net and ringing one off the bar, trucking a defender, grabbing another bar shot, and just dunking on him, and then brushing the Leaf aside as he scored, just to be like, yeah, I'm still really good. I may not be the little ball of hate or the little rat anymore, but I am really good. Because he is still really, really good.
And you notice that, not that he doesn't deserve it, but they started to give DeBrusk some of those like off-wing in the power play, those off-wing kind of defense drops that he gets to rip that shot kind of from the top of the half. Yeah, that's a shot like you'd love to see Marchand start. Like,
agreed.
One, he always used to take them, but two, I would love to see him get a couple snapshots on the next power play like that, where he catches, there's a quick screen, and he's able to just rip one because we know he's right behind Pasta for the best shot on the team.
Agreed.
I'd say it's probably Pasta,
pure,
him, and
yeah,
then
pure
Pasta,
dead shot.
him,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
Geeky for sure are my top three.
Pure dead shot. Yep.
Yeah, I want to see more shots from him because we know he can do it.
Yeah. Now on the power play, I don't know if maybe the reason DeBrusk out of nowhere is getting those shots is because Brad Marchand is drawing attention. And that normally he was able to, for most of his career, kind of have that shot because you'd have a bomb in Zdeno Chara and a bumper in Patrice Bergeron, allowing, so maybe that might, contribute a little more focus is on like the proven guy. But
it's a good point because
agree.
Geeky's been running on the power play and Pasternak's been on the second unit. So that's actually a good point. That's not something I thought of, is they could be giving Marchand a little bit more of a shadow with Pasta not on the other side.
It seems like they might be, at least in today's game. It seemed like they were, which made that power play DeBrusk goal even more like, because it started with Marchand again.
He ripped that one and created a rebound.
Right.
I mean, that's
right.
Yeah,
and it was just he took the shot he hadn't taken in the second period. There was a time, and I wrote it down when I texted you, he's gun shy. We had a 3-on-2, and he was coming up the left-hand side. And instead of just ripping it glove side, he tried to make a pass much similar to the pass that later on Mitch Marner would complete and end up in a goal. But he tried to make the pass. And I think we all know that, like, Brad Marchand's he's a good passer. He is, but he's not an elite level passer. Like, he's a much better sniper, in my opinion, than he is a featherer of the puck across his man, another Bruins man, and then to the open Bruin. I'd much rather see him take the shot than try to feather that pass across 5 different levels.
Agreed.
And so that's why I thought he was gun shy. And I don't know if he heard me or what, but he ripped it. And my last note of the game was I'm really sick of Pastrnak not being refereed like a superstar. He's a superstar. He doesn't get ref like a superstar. He gets refereed like a bum.
Yeah,
like
you're not
he's
wrong.
allowed to get mugged, tripped, speared, boarded, held, pushed, pulled, all of it. Like, it doesn't matter. And
You're right. You'd think of his stature, you'd get the LeBron
Crosby, Ovechkin, and in this series, Austin Matthews doesn't get refereed like that. And I just don't understand what he has to do to get refereed like a superstar. And this kind of thing exists in every league. You know, guys got mad at us with the Tom Brady. Hell, they call every roughing. It's like, well, when you're that good, you get that call. Sidney Crosby gets these calls. Ovechkin got these calls until this year. Matthews is getting these calls right now. Pastrnak is not getting shit.
Yeah,
and he's getting tripped, held, speared, pushed down, held down, all of it. And nothing.
There was one blatant trip I remember that I was just like, I was literally like, oh, nice, they got that one. I'm like, they definitely got that one. And then
they didn't.
We ended up getting a shot on net, and there was no whistle. And I'm like, wait, what? That one was brutal to me. But
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a valid point. We didn't need it tonight, but in other scenarios, like 100%, I'm with you. It's like if you're gonna do it for Matthews, you need to do it for Pasta. He's right up there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's his nationality or what. I get it. Austin Matthews is an American star, even if he plays for a Canadian team. He's the quote-unquote face of the league all of a sudden. I don't really know how he inherited that, but ESPN would love to tell you that he's the face of hockey. I mean, okay.
One ugly mustache face.
Win a playoff series, bruv, is all I'm going to go at.
I think you're right. I think
it's frustrating to watch just him, and he started jawing at the refs a little bit this game, which I really like to see. That he was just like, are you kidding me? Maybe this works in his favor further on in the series, that he finally was the one to snap a little bit and be like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Because he's not reffed the same way other superstars are, and it's a bit of a problem, in my opinion.
Agreed.
If we're gonna ref superstars different, and we've been clear, we ref superstars different. We just do. Whether it's Jonathan Tames, Patrick Kane, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, like, they get refereed different. They just do. LeBron James, like, these guys get refereed different. And somehow Pastrnak doesn't, and I don't understand it.
And I think this is a perfect time for Jim Montgomery to back Pastrnak up. But we're going into the lead, we're going to Toronto. This is the perfect game.
His press conference, just in the press conference, be like, hey,
we can't be having 5 penalties tonight and get the advantage going in the next game, because I'll take it. I'm not gonna pass up a chance at an advantage.
Right. I'm not too proud to try and play the clean game when I understand that the clean game just isn't how it's played anymore. 25 years ago, there would have been a time of oh no, you just keep your mouth shut and you go and you prove it on the ice. That's clearly not what it is anymore. The coach that feels aggrieved chirps in the press conference, gets all the calls the next game, and then it's up to the coach the next game to be like, hey, I didn't like this, and then in the next game it goes that way. We got to start playing the game.
The clean game went out the window when Nikita Kucherov was able to come back, and Mark Stone's able to rupture his spleen and come back a week later and let them add 2 superstars, and that's the clean game got tossed out the window. Then
don't get me started on Vegas. I finally found some hockey fans here in Dallas that are just absolutely losing their mind over this Vegas series. All right, before we end with our 3 stars and our sin bin for this game, anything else you wanted to cover regarding game 3? Any thoughts, feelings, predictions going into game 4, anything?
I think we have the recipe for another win. I think the boys need to be hungry. I think the coach has done the right things for the most part. The whole series last game was a little sketchy, but I've never felt in this series that Toronto's dominated us. I felt like there's been large stretches where we've dominated them. I guess my message to them for next game would be, don't let anything stupid happen. Don't let a Ryan Reeves go at someone's head. Don't let Swayman get knocked in the middle of the intermission. Like, we need to show them our force and our physicality and really come out to play in this game, because that'll set the tone for sure.
Yeah.
Can't let it go 2-2.
To that point, I just want to, like, on the whole, I think he had a really strong game, or a moderately strong game for a fourth liner. But I will say that to me, it looked like Pat Maroon was a little tired there at some points, and I know that he ended up with some long shifts. And I also, I don't want to take this away from like some of the valuable things that he did. I think he was a valuable member of this team today. But right when I was calling for some physicality to get ramped up, every time he was on the ice, he looked like he was dragging his legs a little bit.
He was definitely fatigued. I think I'll call this out. I think one, he was the first person to step up when Swayman was hit in that intermission.
Agreed. Yep.
But
100%.
I truly think they rushed him back, or they probably wanted to give him a little bit of a longer recovery. I think the only reason he is out there is actually Ryan Reeves, to be completely honest with you.
I agree.
I think if we were to go out there without Pat Maroon in the lineup and let Ryan Reeves just be out there, that wouldn't be good for our team. And so just having his presence is, I think, to be completely honest, I think management, that's all they were looking for. They don't give a shit what he does as long as he's out there and saying, hey, you're not going to touch us, kind of a thing.
I agree. And I want to just call out, like, I know Jim Montgomery complained in the press to the league office about how, we're the favored seed here, but we now have to wait until Saturday to play our next game, which is technically keeping us away from Boston longer than we've been at home in this. We're also staying the night already. The plans are confirmed. We're staying the night Saturday and not traveling back till Sunday. But I think that this little two extra day break might be exactly what somebody like a Pat Maroon needs, just to rest, recuperate, get some ICI, get some PT, get whatever it takes to like get back out there. And a Pat Maroon being out there as an enforcer to ensure that we go up 3-1 is a hell of a lot better than a Pat Maroon zombie trying to maintain like a 2-2. So I understand I understand what Montgomery's going for. I also understand that the whole reason we're in this situation is because the Celtics own the Garden for their playoff series, and it kind of screwed some things up. But I'm not mad. While I would love to have a game on Friday because I just love the every other day, I love that thing. I don't hate necessarily the extra day's rest because of the legginess I saw from a Pat Maroon. From the legginess I saw from everybody, to be perfectly honest, everybody looked a little leggy. They really did.
Yeah.
I'd rather and also let's not pretend this is 1982 and they're staying at a Motel 6. Like, these guys are in tits fucking accommodations.
Ritz-Carlton.
Their families are traveling with them if they want them to. Whether paid for by the Bruins or not, their families are allowed to travel with them. Like, this is not getting on a bus and driving from Boston to Toronto and staying at a Motel 6. Like, they are in really good accommodations. They can stay an extra day in Toronto. It's really okay. And I'd rather but I understand where, just in the mind game things, like Montgomery is like, hey, we don't think it's a little screwed up that we're the higher seed and we're spending more time on the road potentially. I agree with that from a precedent standpoint, but also let's not pretend like, oh, being on the road means that they're all sleeping on the bus and getting their bags out of the bottom of the bus and going to the rink. Like, it's not that.
I think going into the series, I can see his perspective. I think the way things have panned out now, he's probably thinking to myself, well, now it's an advantage. We get Adam Peake potentially
back. Yeah.
Maroon some rest. I think someone like a JVR uses the rest. And the other important piece of that is that buys you an extra day to sit down with a Lorei, a Wotherspoon, and watch film. I think it buys you an extra day to watch film and put it into action in a practice.
And it might be one of those. It might be one of those. And it might be one of those, hey, you grab anybody that's got less than 2 years of playoff or less than 3 years of playoff experience. Hey, we're going to come watch film. Like, give some of the vets an afternoon off or whatever. calling the young guys like, hey, super non-threatening, super like not critical or whatever. Like, hey, we're just going to watch some film, talk about what's going on. This is your first couple of playoff series, first couple of playoff games for some of you. Like, honestly, if that were to be the way this is taken, I guarantee a guy like Brad Marchand is showing up to that film session. Like, he's going to show up. Even though he's not, he's going to show up just to reinforce the important, like, that's the kind of leader that Brad Marchand is. I'd love for them to take that time. You know, you get some guys, some extra hours of rest, some extra PT, extra ice, whatever it might be. And just, we'll tackle them on Thursday.
And I hope they do some extracurriculars with the extra day. I'm hoping the message is, hey, let's go out for a steak dinner tomorrow night, right? Like, great W. Let's go spend some time together, and it doesn't all have to be about planning and hockey. Hopefully, it can be.
I love Claude Julien. His theory in 2011, in the spring of 2011, when we went up to Montreal down 0-2. We won game 3 in Montreal, had this exact same 3-day or 2-day break. Put all the boys on the bus and bus them from Montreal to Lake Placid, New York. He put them on a bus instead of a flight so that they could bond. Took them to Lake Placid, home of the 1980 Miracle on Ice, and just let them go to the museum. Like, there was no coaching. There was no nothing. It was just a boys' road trip on the bus. They went to Lake Placid. It was awesome. A lot of the American guys on the team were like, they got inspired by that. Tim Thomas talks about it to this day, how being there and seeing Jimmy Craig's highlight reel and his mask and his pads and all that, were like, he's why I got into hockey. Like, you can team build this with and still and keep it hockey relevant without it being series specific or, hey, we're going to talk X's and O's or whatever. Like, you can bring the boys together on something like this. I don't know. For me, I always loved a road trip. I loved a road trip. I loved the bonding with the boys. I loved all that stuff. I really thought that we played our best games on the road from a chemistry perspective. Obviously, you love having the home crowd, you know, being behind you and all that, but there's something about a road trip, especially a bus kind of road trip, where it's just like, we're boys now, like, let's go. So I'd love to hear after the season that, like, hey, Monty had X, Y, and Z planned for the boys, and we even if it is to like a steakhouse or something where we didn't talk shop. We just got to know one another. We played Trivial Pursuit or did karaoke, or I don't give a shit. Like, team build, bond, get together, come together as a team, come together as somebody where when you look up left and right down that bench, you're like, I will take a small rubber heavy piece of shit for that guy going at 100 miles an hour, just like Parker Weatherspoon did off the inside of his knee. Like, you got to build that. Like, I will shatter my shin a la Gregory Campbell for these boys. Like, foster that environment. Okay. Before we get out of here, do you want to do some stars and sin bins?
Let's rattle them off. Let's do 3 each and call it a night.
All right.
Well, we don't have to do 3. Throw as many as you like in, I guess.
I feel like we're probably not going to have 3 separate stars. So, because I mean, Jeremy Swayman is star number 1 for me. Kid can ball. Kid can play. When a goaltender plays like that, I'm always going to give it to the goaltender. I think he played outside of his mind, and I think he's got all Leafs numbers. So he's the number 1 star for me.
Agree with that one. If you're leaving me number 2, obviously going to Brad Marchand.
Brad Marchand, number 2. There we go.
Finally stepped up. Absolutely.
Agreed. And number 3, we might go 3 for 3 here. I've got Jakey D. I've got DeBrusk at number 3.
We're going to give a tie on the 3rd. We're going to split the star in half. We're going to give the 3rd to Trent Frederick and Jake DeBrusk.
Okay.
I think they both deserve it.
Fair.
I mean,
I can see. Yep, I understand your Freddie point.
I think with the way that Marchand was tied up and the way Freddie went down and kind of like he just, that's not a shot a goalie normally lets in, but granted to him that their goalie's weak. Like, just put it on the net. He ripped a laser.
I was saying that from period 1. This dude, we're making him look like a Vezina Trophy winner. This dude is ass cheeks. He is
It's the time when we
cheeks.
needed it too. Like the
He
timing
is
of the goal was
cheeks.
huge. Yeah.
Okay. The sin bin.
I'm going first, and I'm throwing the entire referees in the sin bin. They're all
That
in
is
there
refs.
from this game and Monday's game.
That is refs. And my second is and I don't want this held against him. But he has to go in when you take 2 penalties in a playoff game. Mason Lowe, right? You're like you're gonna go in the bin. You put a shorthanded twice. I don't think either one were egregious. I don't think either one should have been called, but they were. Once the first one was, you gotta know that the second one was going to be. And to me, that's just youthful inexperience. And I put him in the box. I've already taken him out because I don't think he needs to earn his way out of there. I would much rather see him on the ice than not in the next game. I think that he, both short and long term, is more valuable than Matt Grzelcyk. I just do. I think
Agreed.
I think Grzelcyk's a liability. I think Lowry offers a lot going forward. I think it was nervous. And I don't think it's fair to attack someone for being nervous on their playoff debut. Think about, like, if we're going to praise these guys that are like, oh my God, his first playoff game, he was so composed and plays so well. And like, he's so great. If we're going to do that, then we also have to give some grace when a guy just has like a normal first playoff appearance. It's like, it was nothing special. It does nothing to make me think like, I don't think Mason Lohrei is suddenly going to be the best defenseman in the league in 3 years. I don't think that that's his skill set. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying let's also not pretend like this suddenly means that he's garbage. Like,
agreed.
I think he's better than Matt Grzelcyk. Perfectly honest, I think he's better than Matt Grzelcyk. I think he's going to be a Bruin longer than Matt Grzelcyk is going to be. And so if he's not a liability, then why not get your future Bruin more reps than a guy on the way out? If he's not a liability. If there was a clear, like, wow, Grzelcyk is so much better than this guy, then go with the guy that's so much better than this guy. But I didn't feel that way. You?
Nope. I agree with you completely. I mean, yeah, it just shows, like, if we had to give a 4-star, I'd probably go to Jim Montgomery for kind of giving these guys a shot early. We said, hey, it's a game of chess. We have to win 16 games. Giving them a chance now and taking a W out tonight is going to go a long way.
Agreed.
If I had to throw 2 more guys in the box, I mean, we're picking straws here, but I'm probably picking Zacha and Pasta. I think Zacha had a couple weak ones. He had a bad penalty.
He had some turnovers that were bad.
And Pasta just kind of felt like non-existent tonight, which, like, I'd rather that in a game that we win because chances are Pasta's going to come out next game. So I'll take it, but they're throwing in the box. I'm leaving you your third.
No, I was gonna say. I had similar. So while I'm talking about this, I'll think of another one. I'm sure. I would much rather. This is a game.
Obvious. I thought it was very obvious who you were picking. That's why I left it for you. But
who did you think I was gonna pick?
I think he is maybe from Weymouth, Mass. His name might start with a C, both first and last.
Yeah, it absolutely might. Charlie Coyle. Are you or are you not in witness protection? I need to know. Like, if you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, hiding from the mob, like, I'll stop saying your name out loud. But like, where the hell have you been, my guy? Where have you? I know technically, he is going to end up on the score sheet for having pried the puck out of that scrum to lead to the DeBrusque. Like, I know technically he's on, but I'm sorry, that is not. No, that's bullshit. Where has he been all series? Not even talking about this game. All series. Where has he been? Where has Zacha been? Where, like,
where
have they been? Where? What are they doing?
Coyle's shocking to me because he's actually one I had pegged as someone who kind of could dominate the series. So I think that's good news and bad. It's good news and bad news. If he turns the lights on, it could be a massive upgrade for us. But he has not looked great.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, for the next 15
he's not looked
seconds,
great.
I'm going to give him all the motivation he needs because the pod knows when I criticize, he steps up. Charlie Coyle looks like a guy that cuts his pizza. You bum. Where the fuck has he been?
With a knife.
What? Yeah, with a knife. What is he doing with he eats his pizza with a fork and knife. You bum. What are you doing? Where have you been? Like this is terrible. This is terrible. It's not even like he's coming close and not executing. I didn't hear his name until midway through the second period. When I texted you, I thought he drew a penalty. And then apparently he didn't. But like maybe he didn't draw the penalty because no ref is looking at him as somebody that's making any meaningful contribution to the game. Absolutely Where has he been? What has he been doing? Is he going to show up Game 4? Is he in Toronto? Can we confirm?
I hope so because he could be a huge boost. I think he can. A lot of his games when he's not playing like he has the last 2 games is a huge strength against Toronto. So like, if he can step it up, I feel like that's a plus for us.
At the risk of saying something nice about the boy from Weymouth, when the Bruins can win a game that both that dude and Pasternak, quite frankly, underperformed dramatically, that's a good sign.
It is.
Because
it's a great sign.
history this season says those two do not underperform for long.
Agreed. And I'm not buying him any grace by any means, but we have switched up the lines recently. Maybe that plays into it, but
somebody's got to give him some credit. You pump this dude's tired, and you pump his tires, and it works. I pop them, and it works too. So
it might
pump
be
his tires. I'll pop them.
It might be Sullivan tires down there. He's doing too many commercials down there. He's not thinking about hockey. So,
hopefully he realizes that the sooner he closes his Toronto series out, the more time he can spend with his dogs, and we can just close this Toronto series out. I think we're in a good shape. I think we both called Bruins in 5 or Bruins in 6.
5.
We could both call Bruins in 5. I think we're right on track for it. I thought this was going to be the game we lost, not last game.
I did too. Agreed.
So the flip-flop does not bother me whatsoever. Honestly, in my opinion, makes our 5 prediction look even more realistic than not.
Agreed.
So I think we got this game. I think that we won this game with a lot of underperforming stars and a hell of a lot of great goaltending. Here's hoping
we got a lot of making up to do too. We're the only team that hasn't started off the series as a favorite 2-0 in the East. The West, it's looking like are all going to be tied up one if things continue. I mean, it's early in some of the games, but if it continues, it looks like it's going to be tied up 1-1 in a lot of those series. So,
well,
we need to make a statement and beat them in 5.
I think on that front, we knew what the East was going to be. We knew that the Rangers Capitals series was an overmatch. We knew that. To be perfectly frank, I don't know how the hell the Islanders blew it against Carolina the other night. That should have been a 1-1, but it wasn't. But at the end of the day, we're both pretty confident Carolina comes out of there too.
I actually, to be fair, that was one I bet on the Islanders when I was at Mohegan. I thought the Islanders kind of going into the series, I felt like they might have been a team that could have shocked the Hurricanes team. I think they were the one team that I thought like, hey, they might be able to come in and surprise. For a large part of those first 2 games, they did. They kind of dominated.
Well, and Carolina's now got some injuries.
Bam.
Carolina's now got some injuries that they've got to deal with. That could be impactful later. I think we always kind of felt that the Florida matched up a little better with Tampa than I think we thought maybe we might have matched up with Tampa. So that honestly doesn't come as a surprise to me. But I think the most important thing is we don't play the Rangers until, best and or worst case, the East Conference Finals, having gone 1-2. And I think we're the two best teams in the conference. The West, I think, is weak. And I think we're seeing that it's up in the air, and there's not a dominant team out West because nobody's able to grab any early lead. So I think,
I'd say it's, to me, in the West, it's probably the Oilers.
Oh, really?
I like the Oilers this year. I feel like
interesting. Vegas does not.
I think though they're also losing 3-1 to the Kings now. I think the Predators.
Let's be clear. That's the Los Angeles Kings.
Exactly. I think the Predators could be a really dangerous team, but we clean their house in the regular season, and then. I mean, obviously Vegas. I think Vegas is the front runner for anyone.
Vegas has to be.
Yeah. I think Vegas would be the toughest matchup for us as well because of their depth. I think they're the only team that matches us depth-wise, which is clearly one of our strengths. I think if it's the Oilers, it's a very similar to Toronto where we kind of take out the stars. Like, they're going to have their points, but if we limit them, I think we're okay there. So, yeah, Vegas is really the only team that would actually, present a challenge in my eyes.
Yep. All right, buddy. Well, I think that just about wraps up game 3. I think, a lot of positives to take away, a couple of things to go back to the drawing board on. I think we both hope that they are very soon on a bus ride to some team building activity over the next couple of days. Hopefully it's not in Toronto because there's nothing in that godforsaken city. But you hope the boys are able to kind of bond a little bit, refresh, get some guys that need some extra time on the training table, get them their extra time on the training table. And we go back at this Saturday night in Toronto, and I got to be honest, I can't fucking wait.
Yeah, at 8:00, and I will be honest with you. If we are going live, just a quick warning for the fans: I will be at Joseph Grillo's 30th birthday party in Boston.
Oh, Grillo!
It's Grillo. It's an 8:00 game. I'm just gonna let you know ahead of time if I do make it live on the podcast. It's a big if. I'm gonna be very hammered, so hopefully I can get you some live reactions from the birthday party and the Bruins winning at the bar, but. Outside of that, I can't promise you anything, Pat. You might be doing a little solo live take because I don't want to fall over at the bar.
And that's all right. Let's if you can get us some live takes, awesome. Depending on how the night goes, if we can get you maybe even a guest appearance from a Grillo on the pod. If not, I will be here live after the game. We'll break it down. We'll talk through some things. That's gonna mean I'm gonna rely on y'all in the comments. We might make this a little more interactive than we normally do, but we'll kind of play that by ear. But one thing is for certain, the Kings of Causeway will be talking about Game 4 right after Game 4. And until then, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Kings of Causeway. Follow the Mother Network at BSEN_617. Pat Berg, that's been Ryan Coffey. Coffey, good job by you, buddy.
Good job by you, Pat. On to another win. Let's go.
On to another one. 14 to go, baby.